following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back talking sports in the zone, baseball today, with my old buddy, Jeff Kallman. How are you, sir?
So far, so good. How are you doing?
Oh, not bad at all. We got a win today, and there's life. When there's life, there's hope. We're talking about the Mets, who are in a frantic chase for the final wild card position. And you know what? They're more likely to win the division than
and I'm more
they
likely
are
to be
a wild
named
card.
commissioner. I'm more likely to be named commissioner of baseball.
Hey, they have done and could do a lot worse. You are a thinking man, and it's a privilege for me to chat with you every week because you come up with something that combines both statistical analysis with human performance. And
Well, among other things, for example, I suspect that future baseball trivia contests will feature questions such as this. Name the team that won the 2019 American League East despite making a mass triage seem like a day camp's first aid station. And the PS maybe should be, name the American League's 2019 Manager of the Year according to Major League Baseball's Writers Association and the American Red Cross.
Aaron Boone.
Bingo. But it won't surprise me to see those in trivia contests.
And they're doing it with mirrors because their pitching staff has been torn apart, literally.
The whole team has been torn up and down and back and forth all year long. This is a team that broke the record for most players on the injured list in a season. The number, by the way, is 30. And
with that, Boone gets his second consecutive 100 victory season in his first two. He's like breaking Casey's record.
He has broken it. I'm going to ask you a question. Name all the managers in Major League history who won 100 games or more in their first two consecutive seasons.
I think it's Aaron Boone, and that's it.
That's exactly right. Boone sits alone. No other manager has done that. Nobody. Not Connie Mack. Not John McGraw or Joe McCarthy or Miller Huggins. Not Stengel. Not Walter Alston. Not Tony La Russa. Nobody.
Not Pinky Higgins.
Don't make me laugh.
I try not to. You can tell my humor is specifically designed, at best, to smile. And you know what? It's easier to make people laugh than it is to make them smile. All I want is a smile.
I'm pretty sure that the Yankees will one day look back upon this and laugh. Right now, they were laughing probably like Figaro that they might not weep over the fact that this season's Yankees were episodes of Bones House, Private Practice, Grey's Anatomy, ER, Chicago Hope Medical Center, and Marcus Welby, MD on any given day of the week. I'm not sure, but I have heard rumors that there were Yankee fans who claimed that this year's yearbook was the New England Journal of Medicine.
Very well.
What they have achieved this year, despite all those injuries, is mind-boggling. The only team in baseball that's had close to that many injuries and still is going to come out looking anywhere close to the Yankees is the Astros.
Well, you know
They had a lot of key men injured, and they're going to go 100 plus and take the West, if they haven't taken it already.
Right. You know who's going to scare people? Is the Oakland A's.
It'll make a few people nervous, definitely.
Yeah,
they're not making the Rangers a mistake. They're doing nothing.
I would say that Billy Beane is going to the Hall of Fame someday. He gets more bang for his buck than any other GM for the past 10, 15 years.
That he does, except for one. There's just one thing missing.
They haven't.
For all his intelligence, for all his ability, for all his intellectual agility, his financial agility, his teams have not yet won a World Series. They're built for pennant races, but they're not always built for October. In fact, they're almost never built for October.
Yeah, you know why? Because I think October you got to have 3 really solid starting pitchers. And
you need either 3 solid starting pitchers, or you need a bullpen that doesn't come to the ballpark with gasoline cans.
No question.
And this postseason is going to be interesting to watch in terms not only of seeing quite a number of solid starting pitchers scattered around the teams will be there, but it's going to be interesting to watch some of the bullpens, the Dodgers in particular.
Yeah, who knows what the Dodgers...
Kenley Jansen is starting to show his age. Dave Roberts is going to be playing quite a juggling act with his relief pitcher when he has to go to that pen.
Yes.
And I'm sure he won't be. And I'm sure he won't be the only one. But now, right this split second, Jansen and the Dodgers are the more obvious ones, I think.
Okay.
We're gonna have
Provided
bullpens.
there's no miracle, I got to ask you. Provided there's no Met miracle, I got to ask you. Who's going to be managing the Mets next year at this time?
That's a very good question, and there have been a few names thrown out and about as possibilities. Two of them have been Joe Madden, whose contract is expiring in Chicago, and who may not be back there, and the other is Joe Girardi. But I don't see them being fits for the Mets, who I couldn't really tell you. These days, it's not always easy to predict who the Mets administration will cast an eye upon. So realistically, your guess is as good as mine if it's going to come down to that. And I have a feeling that unless they get to the postseason somehow, and even if they do get there, Mickey Callaway may be a dead man walking.
Okay. I heard a name, and I came up with a name. The name I came up with is Bruce Bochy, who is leaving the Giants, but not retiring. And I put that in quotes. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to take a wild guess that Bochy may be looking at having at least 1 year to decompress. Remember, this is a man who managed several extremely solid Giants teams and was winning a World Series every other year for a time, it seemed. And in the last few years, the Giants have been gradually falling apart. If I'm a manager, I'm thinking, I need to take a year off to breathe and to regroup, especially if a club like the Mets, who are trying desperately not to go to rebuild mode, but just retool here, retool there, and stay in competition. So I would not be shocked if Bochy takes at least a year off before weighing any further options. There's also rumors that the Padres are looking at him since they fired Andy Green the other day. So Bochy will be interesting to watch. Bochy will be interesting to watch. And you
then
mentioned
I would
as well.
really bet on the Padres. That gives him a chance to stay on the West Coast, brings him back home.
He does like it there, so that's a good possibility. But as I said, for all we know, Bochy may feel like he needs a year to decompress. A lot of managers do.
Okay.
At least those that get the option to retire.
Yes, too. Which
not all of them do.
If I were him, I'd just sit back. He's had some heart problems a little bit. He had a stent put in a couple of 3 years ago.
That gives me another thought. It is,
incredibly high pressure job.
give me another thought. Remember, hark to when Tony La Russa retired after his Cardinals won the 2011 World Series. For quite a while afterwards, there were rumors that La Russa might take another managing job, but he ended up doing so. He ended up going to the front office. Bochy could have that as an option too.
He certainly can. And here, speaking of the front office, a name came up on the Met broadcast today. Moises Alou.
He is rumored right now as being a Padres too. As well.
Pardon me?
Moises Alou is saying Moises Alou is rumored to be on the Padres radar as well as the Mets.
Oh, okay. Because Howie.
Let's keep one thing in mind. Let's keep one thing in mind. When a manager gets executed, rumors will immediately start spitting out about at least 4 or 5 candidates per team when a manager goes.
Right.
That's just the nature of the beast. But Moises Alou is an intriguing option.
He's got the pedigree, if you will. He's also rumored to be a future general manager, according to Howie, with the Mets.
I've heard the same speculation here and there.
Yeah.
And there's another name I'll throw down to you who's already being rumored as on the Cubs radar. Former World Series hero, David Ross.
Oh, wow.
David Ross has
heard anything about him at all. I have no idea what he's like, but
I haven't for a while either until the last few days. Ross, for the last couple of years, has worked part-time as a color analyst for ESPN. But when he retired after that World Series, people spoke of him in terms of future manager. Now, nobody at the time thought of him in terms of any particular team, but Joe Madden looking more like a lame duck every day. David Ross's name is being thrown around. It would be a hugely popular move in Chicago, and it might not be a terrible move. Remember, this is a guy, as a catcher, he was a German major leaguer. He had a fine career. He was respected for, in particular, his knowledge of the game and the way he handled pitching, several of whom made him their personal catcher, including John Lester with both the 2013 World Series winning Red Sox and the 2016 Cubs. And he's been known as a mentor to young players.
Jeff, do you have a preference? If somebody would say, who would you, if you could name the manager, who would it be?
That would depend on the team. I think David Ross would be it. For the Mets, that's an excellent question. I don't know who they've got in their system that they would choose. I know it wouldn't be Jim Riggleman.
Perhaps. He managed Brooklyn, their short A team, and few managers have gone from short A to the bigs. Bochy being one of them.
That's true. But until you put the name in front of me, I never thought of Edgardo Alfonso as being on the radar just yet.
Okay.
It's not a bad thought, but nobody seems to have been kicking his tires about that. The word on David Ross is that Cubs have been keeping a close eye on him, and he's open to it. And here's something that I'm cut. For catchers are often not the first team has had when it comes time to name fresh manager because their game knowledge is given. They probably have the most game knowledge of any player on the field. And historically, right now on this very day, there are four former catchers still managing who have won divisions, pennants, or World Series. One was supposed to use another. It's Hinch with the Astros, Ned Yost with the Royals. And Yost is rumored to be leaving Kansas City after the season too. And their predecessors for a division pennant and or World Series winning, let's see, Connie Mack, Al Lopez, Ralph Out, Yogi Berra, Bill Hodges. He started his career as a catcher, converted to first base early in his career. Johnny Oates, Joe Torre, Mike Scioscia, Joe Girardi. The catchers have been well represented as successful major league managers.
You know, that's very interesting.
Yeah, look, Connie Mack, all those two Philadelphia A's dynasties. Al Lopez won 2 pennants in the 50s. Ralph Houk won 3 straight pennants and a couple of World Series, taking over things with the Yankees. Barrow won a pennant with the Yankees, then later won a pennant with the Mets. Hodges, the Miracle Man.
Not that he managed, but Branch Rickey was a catcher.
Right there. Now there's a case of a catcher becoming a baseball genius. Johnny Oates won 3 divisions with the Rangers in the 90s. Joe Torre and those Yankees. Mike Scioscia won the Angels' first and only World Series. Joe Girardi has a World Series win and a pennant and a couple of division and several division titles.
And one of the smartest catchers of all time, Torborg, got his chance to manage 4 times and failed miserably.
Miserably would be a polite way to put it, particularly the 2 seasons he managed the Mets.
Oh, yeah. And you couldn't get mad at the guy. He's so likable. He's so bright. But
you couldn't get mad. You couldn't get mad at him until you did. Essentially.
Right.
And I did feel for the guy kind of in those couple of years, considering what he was handed to work with. And that was at a time when not only the team was falling apart on the field, but the front office was falling apart completely. I mean, first they dismantled a powerhouse. As soon as the powerhouse became a powerhouse, then the front office was almost as dysfunctional as the team in the field and in the club was.
Right. Well, you know what comes to mind when you talk like that? Billy Joel, who said, "These are not the best of times, but they're the only times I've ever known." And that should be
I'll see you, Billy. I'll see Billy Joel, and I'll write you Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Yes. That 2 things can be equally true. Throw out one more guy for you.
Often
How
the same
about
day.
player manager? Todd Frazier, the Todd father.
I don't know. I don't know much about what he's done since he ended his playing career.
No, he's still playing.
You're talking about the Mets third baseman.
Yes.
The Todd father is the only Todd father I think about is Todd Helton.
Ah, okay. Different.
This is like naming Ivan Rodriguez Pudge when we already knew there was a Pudge in the Hall of Fame named Carlton Fisk.
True.
But as for Frazier, I don't know that he's indicated any intentions in that direction. He's probably coming down the stretch of a fine career. I can't see him playing more than another year or 2 at best. Beyond that, I really don't know.
Yeah. Just the way the clubhouse is, he's a guy that comes to mind. He's on the front step of the dugout more than Callaway when something happens good.
Well, that's the same reputation that David Ross had on his team in the later part of his career. He was the same kind of clubhouse leader.
Right. And, that transcends. You're talking about ball players. They want to identify with their manager a little bit, and they want to know that their manager has their backs. And
there are also those players who take on, sometimes overtly, sometimes just by happenstance and by doing it. There are players who become undisputed clubhouse leaders, and when they depart, something is missing. A lot of what I've been reading involving the David Ross speculation with the Cubs is that the Cubs themselves are whispering more than a little bit softly that one of the things that's been missing from the team since 2016 has been Ross in the clubhouse. Just like after the Nationals let Dusty Baker go, he gave an interview, I think it was early last season, And the subject of the Nationals clubhouse, which at the time was thought to be dysfunctional, came up, and Baker immediately said, Jason Worth, that's the guy they miss in that clubhouse. So there are players who make a big difference in their presence, in their way of doing things, in their attitudes, and in their approach relationships with their teammates that make a huge difference. It's almost as much as a pitcher's innings or a hitter's overall total average. And David Ross was one of those players. Todd Frazier is one of those players with the Mets, and he's been that way with other teams. There are lots of players who go that way. And some of them become thought of as possible managers.
I would have thought for Chicago that Girardi would have been the perfect fit. Did he price himself out a little bit with the ESPN gig? These guys,
I don't think he priced himself. I don't think he priced himself out. What I think of Joe Girardi is that he managed himself out of the possible picture. Remember what happened to him in his last season. He had a young Yankee team loaded with talent, and they underachieved. And just like has happened with Madden, seemingly, and with and others, Girardi lost touch with both his front office and his clubhouse. And he also had some head-scratching moves tactically in games, none more so than the non-review of Game 2 of 2017 American League Division Series. That was the play in which, with 2 outs, Lonnie Chisenhall of the Indians at the plate, and he get ruled hit by a pitch. Every television replay showed the knob of Chisenhall's bat. If the Yankees called for a review, it would have been strike 3, side retired. Instead, Girardi fiddled, and he got burned. Now with bases loaded, and the next batter, Francisco Lindor, hit off the right field foul pole. Turned a potential blowout into a 1-run deficit.
I do remember that. Yes,
yep.
indeed.
The Yankees went on to the American League Championship Series. They got pushed up by the Astros, who went on to win the World Series. But that non-review call may have helped seal Girardi's fate.
Okay.
I don't know who's thinking about him now.
I have a question for you that I wrote down. Which team surprised you in the 2019 season? Good, bad, or indifferent? Surprised you because they overachieved? Surprised you because they underachieved?
Well, for an overachieving surprise, I have to go with the Yankees, who were hit with the injury bug right out of the chute and managed to win 100 games. For underachievers, I'm not going to say I was surprised about underachievement, but I'm going to say I was royally shocked at just how dysfunctional and how dissembling their clubhouse turned to be. The Pirates.
Yeah.
I knew the Pirates were still I knew they were still rebuilding. I knew they were not likely to be in contention this year. That was a given. But when
they
you
had
see
a nice streak towards June and July, they looked pretty good. They were
for a short period. They did.
Closure.
For a short period, they did, but they fell apart completely, and not just on the whole clubhouse has been a disaster. The Pirates also earned a reputation for Burworth headhunting on the mound.
Oh, really?
It only partially climaxed with that fight on the night of the new single trade deadline when they provoked the brawl with the Reds. And they and there were incidents before then and afterwards that actually had complaints being lodged to the commissioner's office. And because of those, they got a formal reputation as headhunters. Also, a couple of the people who were involved in those fights turned out to be clubhouse poison by that time. Two of those culprits were Kyle Crick and Felipe Vasquez. And finally, down the stretch, they had a clubhouse fight over, get ready, music, that ended up in Crick suffering a season-ending finger injury. And you know about what happened to Vasquez up to and his arrest on charges of sexual misconduct with underage girls.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know it was girls, but I didn't pay
They
that
were
much
girls.
attention.
They were girls under.
Anyone
under 16.
underage is not good. But I remember Louis Polonia as an example of.
How about Paul?
The girl's mother called him from the hotel and said, "He's underage. She's underage," and he said, "No mas, doesn't matter." Anyway, it's a sick world.
So the Pirates being that severe a mess was a total surprise.
Yeah. Okay.
So those would be two surprises for this season.
And I'm going to ask you to put your Nostradamus hat on. Next year, who will overachieve next year compared to this year? Who's just on the verge of breaking out, and they haven't done it this year, but they will?
I think good the Phillies. They stayed competitive much this year. They weren't a powerhouse. I think the Phillies are close.
Right.
All they need really is a slightly tightened up bullpen, which is about what half the teams in baseball need. The Phillies, yes. I think the Phillies might break out next year.
Okay.
I don't know how far they'll go in the postseason. I can see them getting there.
Now I'm going to ask you, what's the future of umpiring? Will this become a computer game where the call is automatically made by electronics and takes all the humanity out of it, all the
we already have too much humanity in the umpiring corps as it is. There's no reason on earth why people like Angel Hernandez or Joe West should still be employed as umpires at any level of this game. Unless the commissioner's office gets off its schneid and gets down to some very serious agreement that there must be and will be umpire accountability, the robots are going to happen. And the umpiring robots are going to happen, and I won't be shocked if it happens because, if nothing else, we have a commission who can be slightly lazy.
Well, they tested it in an independent league, in the Atlantic League, but I heard today that they're going to do the instructional league in Arizona. They don't call it the instructional league, but you know what I'm saying. The development league, the fall league.
Yeah, they're good. It's not going to happen overnight. They still need to test it. They still need to retest it, and they still need to calibrate all the results. But what's going to happen is this: baseball's leadership is going to have to get down once and for all and start demanding A, umpire accountability, B, that things like the strike zone are enforced by the book and not by umpire preferences. I watched a few games this week where I saw so many strikes called that were close to strikes against both sides in the game. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
You know what gets me? They say, well, the catcher framed it. Hey, the call should be made.
Why do you think the catchers are trying to frame it? Because they know the umpires' strike zones fluctuate so wildly that the catchers and the pitchers need every little break they can get.
The call should be
call the uniformly prescribed strike zone, and pitch framing doesn't even matter anymore.
Right.
Call the strike zone by the book. Jam down the umpire's throats if you have to. But get off your butt and enforce that rule. And cut this crap about individual umpire strike zone once and for all.
There was a book written not long ago called Get It Right. It was about umpiring, and that's all we as fans really want. We want it right. And these new testing have concluded that like 88% of the calls, the ball strike calls, are correct. 88%. It should be 99% at least. And that's a disgrace, really.
Well, in today's climate, in today's game, I would settle for 88%. That'd be an improvement.
Okay.
Now, I want one thing understood. I am not saying that every umpire in baseball, major and minor league, is a figure of incompetence. I think most of the umpires are competent. I think it's just the Joe Wests and the Angel Hernandezes and the C.B. Buckners who make them look worse than they really look. But that having been said,
it comes down
I
to
still
the union.
think
I don't think you could solve a lot of these problems because of the umpires union, and we haven't heard.
Let me tell you a little story. The reason the old umpires union finally got broken was because of this issue. It was because Bud Selig and his office started demanding accountability that Richie Phillips, the director of the old umpires union, got the iron in his spine and came up with the mass resignation strategy that ended up breaking that union.
Mm-hmm.
If baseball wants to demand umpire accountability, it's going to be the umpires who end up suffering. Their old union got broken over the issue. It would probably happen again. But baseball has got to get some iron in its spine of itself and just say, hey, it's time. The crap, knock it off with all these variables on the strike zone, and either you guys learn to enforce the zone by the rule, or guess what? The robots are going to come. Look what happened with instant replay. The umpires have generally taken to that. As often as not, you'll be watching a game and there's a close play or a close call, and the umpires themselves will call for a review if they're not sure. Never mind when the team does it. So it's not like a uniform rule on something like the strike zone is impossible, but it's just got to be brought to the table and done. Union or no union, commissioner's office or no commissioner's office.
Very good point. Hey, we've had another terrific show. You're the most informative guy I know, Jeff Kallman.
You flatter me, Ralph.
And you're also a musician, and I'm going to get your music on the podcast. You just watch me. This time when it's edited, we're going to have a little Jeff Kallman playing some music.
You're good for my ego, you know that.
Well, I got to be good for something.
Such as I have one.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Ralph Tycho. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And, you know, I talk a lot of ball. What can I tell you? But I talk ball with the most interesting folks on the planet. Jeff is no exception. Jeff Kallman, Throneberry Fields Forever. Tell us, really, before I send this on our way, tell us how people can read your writing.
You can read my writing at throneberryfields.com or at FanCred Sports or at Sports Central.
Beautiful. You're out there. We'll find you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Ralph.
Talk next week. Adios. Thanks again, everybody. The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.